Hello, everyone. We're here for another amazing edition of the Etiquette Show on MNN, and we have a fabulous guest today, Faith, to talk about her amazing life. So take it away, Santosh.
Faith Alastair, CEO of Void Wave Beverages, age 44, lives in Brooklyn with their wife, Heather. Faith spent a large majority of their life homeless. Faith's childhood was abusive, and yet somehow now a founder, CEO of a startup about to take the world by storm. Thank you so much, Faith, for joining us. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So thank you very much again, Faith, for having us here on the Etiquette Show to talk about your life and about you. So first of all, we were interested in knowing what is Void Wave Beverages? How do you serve the community? We're anxious to know about that.
So, I basically, I use cannabis medicinally for pain. I'm very disabled, and I also use caffeine to self-medicate for various things. And so when New York legalized cannabis, I realized with all of the various products that were available, no one had done a cannabis energy drink yet. And so I decided that this is what I was going to do. And I'm currently in the process of working out funding details so that we can get started.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So have you had sort of trials? Are you kind of have you soft opened it? So what's kind of stage you're at and stuff in terms of
I'm still in the financing part. There's lots of paperwork to sign before we can, all of that. I've never done any of this before. I've run several nonprofit organizations, but I've never run a company. So I'm learning as I go, and I'm very lucky that the finance guys are very patient with me.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And so the purposes of your drink is it sort of to boost energy, or does it have will it have a sort of a medicinal quality to it? Like, what is your sort of focus of it?
Ideally, the way that I've seen is that caffeine and cannabis tend to balance each other out.
True.
One cannabis can create a sense of euphoria, but it can also be so lifting that you get dizzy or that you get distracted or all of these things. But caffeine, I notice, takes the edge off of that. Caffeine, on the other hand, can make you jittery and can make you anxious and all of these other things, which are then eased by adding cannabis to the mix. So the two of them balance each other out really well. And once all the formulation is complete and whatnot, there's going to be a large medicinal quality to it, absolutely.
Awesome. That's good stuff then. So this will be, and you're based in Brooklyn. So this is going to be, so you're focusing mostly on sort of the Brooklyn, New York market for this, or do you have sort of a national ambitions for this?
Well, my ambitions are to go global eventually, but I, due to federal regulations, I have to stay focused in New York at the moment.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Fantastic. And I guess what is, in terms of your sort of your sort of life journey to this to the whole sort of getting to becoming a CEO of a new sort of company and stuff like that. What was the process that sort of reached you at this moment and stuff? Because you as a member of the transgender community, transgender communities in New York City. What was the interface between your association and you sort of embarking on this journey to this new exciting initiative that you've undertaken?
Well, I am the cusp of Gen X and Millennial. I grew up in the 90s in New York City, and I grew up as what we used to call a latchkey kid. Like I said, I was homeless most of my life. And I've always had this sense of, well, the quote that I like to use a lot is, if nobody's coming to pick you up, you have to walk home. and so it's always been an attitude of, if there is something that I want or that I want to do and it does not exist, well, then I have to do it. No one's going to do it for me. And so everything I approach is that way. And growing up in the gay community in the 90s, especially facing adversity, just made me even more headstrong.
Mm-hmm.
So you're great. So you sort of embrace the idea of that, of taking initiative. You're very sort of
Yes.
self-motivated, of the need to, and you're very sort of self-aware of opportunities arise, and you don't wait for other people to take those opportunities. You'll sort of pursue those opportunities yourself if you think it's something worthwhile achieving and doing.
Absolutely. I mean, part of the abuse that I wound up facing growing up was emotional. My mother and father used to tell me that I was lazy and that I had no work ethic and that I wasn't going to amount to anything and all of these things. And as it turns out, I was autistic and had ADHD, and if anybody would have paid attention to me, then I probably would have been God knows what by now, right? So as it turns out, when I'm properly supported, I have this like ridiculous work ethic. Like I apply myself like shoulder to the grindstone kind of thing, and I just push until I either accomplish what I intend to accomplish or fail. And failure, in my opinion, is just the next step before you start again.
So you sort of use that sort of negative energy growing up in your childhood to motivate you to become even more self-determined in achieving your goals.
It made
Absolutely.
you stronger, basically.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
doesn't break you makes you stronger, kind of.
100%.
That's very inspiring. And
Awesome.
I also do love your product. That it's very innovative. Like you said, I mean, I do a little bit of cannabis, and when I have it, and when I have a bit of coffee with it, it definitely helps elevate the high. It makes me feel very positive and more focused to do the work. And I'm surprised that I mean, no one had come up with it before, and you're like a pioneer in this. So that's very inspiring.
I'm
Thank you.
excited to be able to introduce something new, because we live in a world where everything's crap,
A lot,
like everything is made cheaply, and it's made to be disposable, and it's made to be fast, and nobody cares. All the energy drinks out there taste like shit.
I know.
So, I want to make something that is good, and that, we're gonna sweeten our drink with locally sourced honey. We're going to use local farms. We're going to use locally sourced ingredients for all our flavorings, all of that, because I want to do something that is supporting my community.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, that's great. You're taking that approach, because usually when one thinks of energy drinks, one thinks of just a corporation that wants to give people like a caffeine high, doesn't care about the quality, and they just want to make a fast buck, and they're not really concerned about the community and its impact and using locally sourced ingredients and stuff like that. So you're definitely taking an enlightened approach to the whole process of product development.
Well, I mean, again, growing up here, in the time period I did, honestly, I learned to support my community from the guys and girls that started hip hop.
Okay.
They made it big and then came back to the neighborhood and invested in their communities, and I saw that, and so that's what needs to happen. And more recently, I actually discovered, I guess this is sort of a shout out, Madeline Pendleton on TikTok, who is the CEO of a company called Tunnel Vision. And the way she runs her company is communist. Everyone in her organization makes the same amount of money.
That's wonderful.
From top to the bottom, and everybody gets the same benefits, and everybody gets the same, and there's things like unlimited paid time off, and unlimited sick time, and all of the amazing health insurance, whatever these things are, because when you treat people like people, then they work for you. That's
Awesome.
something
It's
that
true.
this country sort of forgot somewhere along the line, because back in the day, they understood that.
So you're going to be taking an ethical approach to how your organization develops, which respects people, so everybody becomes part of an extended family, sort of in that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. My business partner is actually my son-in-law,
Okay.
and which, funnily enough, he and my daughter are no longer together, but he and I are business partners, and my ex-husband is going to be a part of my organization, and several other friends of mine, because I don't agree with the saying that you should not work with family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I watch like ridiculous history YouTubes, and they talk about people who started things like McDonald's, right? And it was always like a pair of brothers or a father and
Yes.
son, or like, and it's like, so if all of these things started with a family, then why is that the wrong way to do that?
Good point.
Yeah.
It seems to me like, I want people around me that understand me.
Yeah.
I've known these people my whole life, so
Yeah.
they understand me and the way I work. And so when I say something, they're not going to go, that doesn't make sense. They're going to go, wait, trust the process.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
it's more dependable as well, family.
Mm-hmm.
You know how they are, and that's good.
Awesome. Awesome. So that's definitely, definitely in my view, like there are a lot of businesses that started off as a family business because there's a sense of communication, like you said, among family members and a sense of trust there that is the basis of a potential successful business.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And how, like, in terms of like, sort of growing up, you talked about, the sort of the negative energy you had from your parents. Did you sort of, to what extent, if any, did you sort of get support, get support from, either the LGBTQ communities
the queer community.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I discovered the queer community at 14. That was 1994. I read a tiny little blurb in the local paper. I lived in Queens. I grew up there.
Yeah.
Advertising a queer youth group.
Yeah.
And when I say tiny and tucked away, I mean, this was a shameful thing. And I made my way down to this place, and I went to this youth group, and the people there were so amazing, and I felt like I found the place I belonged. I felt like I found people that understood me.
Yeah.
And I went to my first Pride Parade that June, and I never looked back. I've been active since. I'm actually the president of the Pink Panthers. And I try really hard to honor that, but I've known some incredible people in my day.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Yes, that's great. I guess you were reading a newspaper and saw like a small ad, and that's how you discovered this group.
That's it. It was a local paper. Like I'm trying to think. I think it was the Queens Gazette or the Queens Tribune or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And you sort of remain active in terms of inspiring others in the queer community as well.
I try. Like I said, I'm the president of the Pink Panthers. We are a militant, radical left organization. We follow the Black Panthers 8-point program, and I try to run actions and protests and give support to other causes, and whatever I can do to give back to my community.
Awesome. Well, that's great. That's great. You're always, thinking about your roots and trying to give back and trying to support a better society for everybody through the movement that you're involved with.
I mean, especially I've worked with queer youth since I was one of them.
Okay.
Yes.
And when I was still in my teens, I would help younger teens that were in bad situations, because I was also in one, so I kind of knew how to get out of things,
Mhm.
And I guess my hyper focus and my autistic special interest kind of thing, made me, because I was so active, it made me like learn all of the things that I could draw on as resources, like to help people. Like back then, if you were a queer youth, the city gave you the world, literally everything. If you were under 18 and you were queer, you got welfare, you got food stamps, you got a place to live, you got health care, you
Wow.
just they just handed it to you. And because we were still so very oppressed, and don't get me wrong, there is no way we are not marginalized today. But because we were so heavily oppressed, we created our own resources within the community that were also available there for youth, because we understood then that without that, the youth would have nothing.
Awesome. So, how do you think, like from your perspective, from a queer perspective, in terms of life as a New Yorker and stuff like that? Do you think that things are just moving in the up and up and all generally going in the positive directions, or are there certain things taking place that you're sort of concerned about? Because I know that there always, from time to time we hear about situations of targeted people being targeted, whether it's LGBTQ or transgender communities, whether it's harassed, in the media and stuff like that. So how do you think things are progressing from a standpoint of a New Yorker and from the standpoint of an American queer person?
Well, that's a layered question. I have always been extremely focused on local politics. I know who all the senators are. I know who all the Congress people are, local district people, whatever. And I follow things very, very closely. And I hate to say it because I didn't like him either, but Bloomberg was the last good mayor we had.
Oh.
We haven't had a good governor in decades. That none of them have the city's best interests at heart. None of them. And it all began with the dismantling of our community-based systems with Giuliani. All of it. Because before that, we had a board of education, which was made up of teachers and parents and community people. We had a board of community for each sector, where people came together with their district leaders and they spoke about things, and there were town hall meetings, and everybody was held accountable because residents were part of these things. And he turned all of that into departments that
Okay.
he appointed people to. And that suddenly the residents were no longer part of this process. And suddenly we had no say anymore. And suddenly we had no voice anymore. And nobody noticed because it was so very gradual.
Oh.
And now we're sitting in 2024, and we used to have zoning laws that required new buildings to, quote, maintain the characteristics of the neighborhood. If you were going to build something new, it had to fit. It could be modern, that's fine, but it still had to fit. And that doesn't work anymore. I live in Williamsburg. I can't, I live in an area that when I was a kid, I had family here that was entirely Puerto Rican. And now it's 90% white, gentrified, very rich people. And I live here because I won the housing lottery.
Oh, okay.
I was living on the floor of somebody else's apartment, and I won the housing lottery with my wife, and we got this apartment. But I live right on the waterfront. And that was another zoning law, was that you're not supposed to interfere with someone else's view of the skyline legitimately. That was a housing law. And I got 2 giant towers that they just built right in front of my building.
Mm-hmm.
Like huge towers.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm not even mad about it. I'm mad about that they just throw out regulations, and they just throw out things that have worked for us for decades, and nobody cares anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, I don't think we're going in the right direction. I live in Williamsburg, and there have been queer-related hate crimes like crazy over the last 2 years in my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like 5 different gay bars in right in my general vicinity. 3 of them were hit with like hate crimes. Like another one in Greenpoint had their flag burned. Somebody got beaten up. And on the other side of the bridge, I watch Jewish people get harassed. I watch Hasids get beaten up. And this is, and half of the time, it's by the cops.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah? The cops are
Terrible.
doing it.
So who are you going to complain to if the
Right,
cops
exactly.
are doing it? It's like,
exactly. So,
wow.
so no. That's one of the pipe dreams that I have, is that if I can make a success of this business and raise my tax bracket sufficiently, I will run for office.
That's
Mm-hmm.
very ambitious. I like that. It's good.
Awesome. Well, definitely
I want to fix my city.
We need more
Wonderful.
politicians in the city who are who are interested in supporting the community and not just trying to participate in the cynical evolution or de-evolution of politics away from the grassroots nature of it that you said used to be available, but now it's all like centralized bureaucracies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's kind of very sort of unfortunate and stuff like that. And since the pandemic and stuff like that, do you notice, like, hey, do you notice that this environment of abuse that's taking place, is that something that's happened since the pandemic? Because I know for myself that there seems to be, since the pandemic, more narcissistic people. There seems to be more selfishness. So is this something that started after the pandemic, or you just think it's not really related?
I think the pandemic timing had something to do with it, mostly because of the protesting that happened while it was going on, because suddenly everybody had all this free time, and so they could devote it to their cause of choice. But not everybody's cause of choice is a good one.
Uh-huh.
That's true.
And unfortunately, because of the nature of them, narcissists tend to be louder than anybody else.
Yeah.
And so, the city used to be 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
You can't find a 24-hour grocery store in Brooklyn anymore at all.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that changed a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what happened? Like, what happened to my city?
Yeah.
We used to be alive, and the pandemic killed it, because everybody got so used to being inside that they don't go out and do things. And then because of the void left by that period of time, our economy has tanked. So nobody can afford to do anything, even if those things were available.
Yeah.
It's reduced employment as well, huh? Like Imagine if it was something was 24 hours, there'd be more people employed, but now it seems that it affects everything. When something's not open 24 hours, and there's no place we can go for emergencies other than maybe convenience stores. It's same here in Ottawa.
Yeah. So what?
In Canada.
So so what do you think? Like, I'm just sort of curious because I'm aware of these like people who are targeting LGBTQ communities and particularly emphasis on transgender communities, sort of the targets of civilians. But what is motivating, you think, what's going on with the police? Are they sort of like, are they just like, is it bigotry? They're like specifically targeting members of the LGBTQ communities, or are there some sort of advocacy going on and these communities, the LGBTQ communities, just happen to be there and then they get targeted? Like, how is that process taking place with the police, you think?
I mean, bigotry is part of it, but it's a very small part of it. The police are frustrated. The militarization of the police has reached this peak, and again, during the pandemic, there was a lot of skirmish, there was a lot of fighting. We made a lot of headway in trying to dismantle the police forces, and we lost a lot of ground as well. And in all of this, the police in this city specifically, they're in their estimation are losing power. I'm not saying that, but that that in their estimation that's what it is, because cannabis has been legalized, so now they can't just arrest people for smoking on the street. And so now they have all of this frustration. And cannabis is just the latest. There's a whole list of things that they have to treat the public in different ways. They're held accountable. They have body cameras. All of these things restrict their movements, and they are frustrated. And so they take that out on whoever they deem weakest.
Oh, I see.
Oh, they're like bullies, yeah.
And in this case, weakness is deemed by who is most marginalized, and that tends to be trans women and Black women and sex workers, and there's a big problem out in Queens with sex workers getting beaten up and arrested by cops like this is the 70s.
Oh no, we're going backwards almost.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Faith. So yes, I mean, definitely there is it's just unfortunate, what's happening with the police. Is a terrible thing to experience this abuse and to be kind of caught in that melee of, of this, the challenges that the police might find of their own sort of ego and inflicting that sort of their power on others in a very sort of negative, abusive way, and when they're supposed to be serving the community. So that's kind of definitely, I can appreciate. That's kind of very sort of demoralizing and stuff like very demoralizing.
The police have never been good to the queer community in my memory.
Mm-hmm.
And I have dealt with them several times. Especially growing up, I don't self-identify as a butch woman, but that is how I am perceived by many people. And that would get me targeted by police often, and it would get me targeted by other people on the street, in which the police would then not help or join the other side. And I learned very quickly how to dodge any sort of altercation with police.
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, I'm not sure if this has been already done, but I'm just wondering if it would be helpful in terms of a suggestion to encourage the police to hire more people from the LGBTQ communities and to encourage them to have those police which are sort of empathetic or who are a part of the community actually doing the policing there to avoid the situation of abuse. Is that right?
the NYPD has an organization already called GOAL, the Gay Officer Action League, and they have something like 500 members or something, and they march in the parade every year, and it's a huge, like, bone of contention because some people think they shouldn't be in the parade at all. I'm one of them. I don't believe cops belong in parade. I don't care who they are.
Yeah.
But they march in the parade every year, and it does not help.
So where are they? So they're not in the communities, like, so they're not actually in the communities policing them. They're like scattered and stuff like that. So
yeah,
not...
the NYPD there was a regulation put in effect about 25 years ago that said that when someone graduates the academy to become an officer, they are not allowed to be placed in the precinct where they live. It's literally the opposite of what it used to happen.
Uh-huh.
It used to be you would graduate and they'd say, well, where do you live? We're going to put you near where you live because you know these people.
Yeah.
And not anymore. Now it's literally the opposite. They purposely place them in neighborhoods where the demographic is such that the police will be an imposing presence.
Oh, I see. So rather than say if you grew up in the queer community in a neighborhood, if you become a police officer, you will not be a part of the police that are patrolling your own community. You'll be put in like somewhere far in Manhattan or Harlem or someplace else.
Right, exactly.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, that's kind of dysfunctional and stuff like that. So you'll get police officers there in your community that are from some other part of New York that might have had a bigotry towards your community, which are now policing your community.
Most of them, funny you put it that way, most of them now live on Long Island. Which is a very bigoted, very racist, very classist place.
Yeah.
And so they think they're better than us.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so they come here, and now you have a bully with a gun who thinks he's better than everybody in the neighborhood he's policing, full of people that he doesn't like to begin with.
Yeah. Yes, that's pretty disturbing.
That's a bad combination of things,
It's just a stick of dynamite.
Oh.
So you mentioned the change from Giuliani and stuff like that, but what has happened with the new Mayor Adams? Are things even getting a little worse now? Or are they getting a little better?
Oh no, they are.
A little worse.
They are so much worse.
Yeah.
This man has the biggest narcissist complex I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Oh.
I watched him stand there and call himself Gandhi. I watched him stand there and say that the New Yorkers should get down on their knees and thank God for him.
Yeah.
This man has a bigger ego than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And he is a cop on top of that. He was the fucking commissioner.
Yeah.
And so, and then so then he made all of these promises during his campaign. He told the civilians that he was not going to be a cop, and he told the cops, I'm going to be a cop. And then he got into office and he broke his promises to literally everyone.
Yeah.
And he pissed off the sanitation workers, which you don't do.
Yeah.
And he pissed off the current commissioner of the police, which you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And, he keeps he's playing with the city.
Yeah.
Like it's a simulation game, like it's a video game.
Yeah.
He's going, this I'm going to put over here. Why? I don't know. I just want to.
Okay.
Nothing that he's doing has any kind of rational reason behind it.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that he's putting into place, he's just doing to show power. Because he can. That's it. Oh,
I see. Yes, that's very regressive. That's not very good at all. So, and what's your perspective like from the state's perspective? One thing which always impressed me about Governor Cuomo is that he was generally seemed to be a nice guy anytime he talked. Hochul seems to be of a completely sort of different perspective. But what's your perspective on sort of the new governor versus Cuomo before that, from a queer perspective?
Well, Cuomo was a liar.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember when his father was the mayor.
Mhm.
So I have a little bit of experience with that family, and I was not pleased when he was the governor,
Yep,
and I was relieved when he left.
yep,
And I absolutely love Hochul. I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
yep,
I love her. I love her
yep,
to death.
yep,
I think that she is the first governor we have had in a long time that actually gives a shit about the state.
yep,
I really do.
yep,
And the things that she has done for the city, because that was another thing, is that a lot, I don't even remember, but a couple of the governors back, they offloaded a lot of responsibility that the mayor's office used to have
yep,
to the governor's office
yep,
for no reason. And so
yep.
now the things that she's doing with it, I think, are beneficial to the city more so than anything Adams is doing.
Yeah, that's good. Well, at least you're getting one level of government working in a positive direction for the city and queer communities in general. And so it's good. It's good that you can at least think that we have problems with Adams, but at least there's good things coming from the state perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we have had, in spite of people like Adams, we have as a city a track record of being quick to change, or rather quick to accept change. If the world is moving,
Yeah,
New York moves with it,
yeah,
always.
Yeah.
And so even if, the whole legislature thinks queer people are deviants, if the people want to make this, a safe place for queer people, that's what's going to happen. And
uh-huh.
that is what happened.
Hmm.
And I think that the queer people in this state, in this city, are getting or have gotten very complacent. And I think that's a bad idea. And I think that we are headed for another gap. Like, it will never have another AIDS crisis, but there is going to be a huge gap in knowledge passed from one generation to the next. We lost a lot of good people during the AIDS crisis, and
Yeah.
as such, the next generation did not benefit from their experience. And so they have no experience to then pass to the next ones. And I'm watching on the internet the children, the queer children, they don't know anything that happened beyond 20 years ago. And they don't believe anything that happened beyond 20 years ago because there was nobody there. And I think we're headed for another because of that.
So, just out of curiosity, what are you seeing in terms of the chatter banter online between sort of the youth queer generations? What are you seeing? What are you seeing that if they had this experience that you're talking about, they would be saying or not be saying? Like, what are you seeing that shows a gap in their knowledge of these sort of this experience being passed on? Like, are they acting kind of? Are they flippant? Are they acting kind of super? Like, what do you see going on with them that's
They're
missing?
they're outright aggressive. The problem is, and it's sounds like all like Satan panic, like, but there is a group, I guess is the right word, of adults, of very specifically focused adults that are on the internet pretending to be children,
Oh
that
God.
are teaching children the wrong things.
Hmm.
And so when people like me or like other elders in the community or even other people their own age that are just historians say things to them, they become extremely aggressive, and they they are gleeful in their attacks on people. They drive people to fatal consequences. I've watched them bully people into suicide.
Oh no.
I've there's one just happened like three or 4 months ago. A creator on the internet who was just an artist. They liked making pictures and they sold the pictures and that was it. And because somebody thought that they didn't like their pictures, suddenly the entire internet piled onto this person until they couldn't take it anymore.
That's
And
tragic.
then these children danced on the grave. They
Oh,
cheered. They celebrated.
So, okay, so let me just make sure we're understanding you correctly in terms of the audience, so there's no misperception. So you're referring to people in the queer community who are adults pretending to be youth, who are then mischievously engaging actual queer youth into bullying them or engaging in activity.
They're training youth to do it.
Oh. Okay, then, so the adult queer, they're pretending to be youth and are training other youth to bully other people.
That's correct.
So so what is their motivation? And when you cause this kind of death and destruction, what are the motivation of these queer adults? Why are they doing that? Are they like psychopathic? Like, why would they do that to another human being?
They're Caitlyn Jenners.
Uh-huh.
They're people who think that they're going to gain cookies somehow by destroying the queer community. That they think they're going to somehow avoid whatever fate is going to befall us by turning against us. And I mean, it's sad, but I was the victim of a harassment campaign that is still going on to this day, where because people listen to me because I'm honest. I have a Facebook page. I have almost 6,500 followers.
wow.
And I have about 1,600 followers combined between two Twitter accounts. And because I don't bullshit people. I am on there who I am right here, who I am, I don't have time for games. I've been on the internet since it started. There is no reason for me to hide, and so people don't like that. They get scared, and so they have attacked me, and I had to cancel an action. I was going to do a protest in Target on 34th Street in Manhattan last Pride, and I had to cancel it due to threats of violence because someone posted that I was a pedo,
Uh-huh.
and the internet believes whatever.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And
False
so,
accusations. Yeah.
Yeah, and so my sometimes paranoia gives you, clarity. And I saw a direct line to some moron pulling a fast one and coming into Target with an AK and shooting up the place because a queer Jew pedo was there,
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's
and
dangerous.
so I stopped it. I said I can't take the chance this is going to happen. But it's going on to this day. They have groups. They have Facebook groups dedicated to hating me.
Oh my God.
So not only if you're like a member of the queer community, you're facing just general bigotry from the society in general. You're facing bigotry from people who are queer themselves, who are engaged in some kind of catfishing activity to subvert the community from within.
That's right.
Because they think that by doing so, they're going to be saved by a Christian God, or they're going to be, or are they actually being paid to subvert?
Some of them might be. I can't speculate what their motivations are. In my experience, most of it is really just plain narcissistic behavior. Mm-hmm. They think they are somehow better than other queers. Mm-hmm. And nothing is going to change their mind. One of my biggest detractors, who is smart enough not to have joined in the harassment campaign, thankfully, is a trans woman in Chicago. And we have like a Professor X Magneto relationship kind of going on. We're mortal enemies, but we at least have some civil respect for each other.
That's good.
But she absolutely 100% thinks she's better than every other queer on the planet. She thinks that she has more claim to queerness than other people. She has more claim to being trans than other people. And to this degree, she just uses her page, which has tens of thousands of followers, to spread bigotry. And stupid bigotry. Because it's like one of the things that they yell about is the identification label of bi-lesbian. That's how stupid it becomes. I've been a lesbian my whole life. The fact that my pronouns are they does not change the fact that I'm a lesbian. The fact that I identify as non-binary does not change the fact that I'm a lesbian. But they have decided, these people, on a strict definition for this word. And if you don't fit inside this cookie cutter, then you're not allowed. And it's destroying youth. Because when you're first starting to figure this out, it's so fragile, and when you stumble on something that resonates, and you say, this is me, and then somebody says you're not allowed, it's crushing.
Yeah.
Especially something so intrinsic.
Yeah. Yeah, just when you're about to a process of self-discovery and you're very sensitive, then the people who you think should be the most sensitive to you are attacking you.
Exactly.
Yes, it just seems like society today, there's just this effort by a certain small group to kind of divide, rule, and conquer, so they're all fighting one another instead of bringing each other together in a celebration of humanity. It's just like negative energy people are dealing with it. It's particularly for your youth. It's kind of sad to see that the youth facing that. As adults, we can insulate ourselves more than the youth who don't have that sense of who are just trying to sort themselves out.
I mean, I used to think that social media was a good thing for queer youth because it did end isolation to a degree.
Yeah.
And then this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I won't say it's all social media, because it's not.
Yeah.
It's Facebook and it's Twitter.
Yeah.
And it's because these are platforms that attract people that are too cowardly to say these things out in public.
Yeah.
And so they let it all loose on the internet. And unfortunately, most of them are either too old or too out of touch to realize that the internet is not, the internet anymore.
Yeah.
The internet is part of our daily life now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Things
We
that
depend
happen
on it.
online are real. The person I'm talking to is not just a vague notion of a person in a box. There
Yeah.
is a person there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we need to, as people to understand this, but a lot of these people don't actually understand this, and they think that it's harmless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they think it's a game, basically, like some
Yeah.
kind of a simulated game. That's
Right.
real life, and
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I just find in social media and stuff like that, there's two people there's too much of a penchant for people. There's like internet trolling. People are not
Yeah.
thinking about the humanity of how they conduct themselves. They're just knee-jerk trolling, or you're this, you're that. It's just negativity when we should be coming together and stuff. So that's kind of disturbing and stuff. Is there anything you might want to add, Faith, that we didn't kind of talk about? You
Yeah.
might inspiring words or any insights you wanted to share?
No,
Other
can't
insights?
think of anything.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Would you something you wanted to add, Santosh?
Oh no, I just wanted to say, Faith, that despite all your like struggles, you're still like coming out with this great product. I'm really looking forward to trying it. Hopefully, it'll also release in Canada one soon. And I'm really excited about this cannabis and caffeine combined drink. That
I'm excited too.
Void
It's going to be called Moonshot.
Awesome.
Okay.
And when you have the actual, announcement that the product is actually available, you can come back on the show and talk about that, because we want to. People might say, "Oh, how am I going to find out about this product?" We want to make sure that we're going to be available for you to make an announcement. If you are looking for media to share your announcement too, so people can connect. People, listening to the show will say, "Okay, I'll just keep watching the Etiquette show, and I'll find out when Faith's product is going to be coming out."
I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for Faith for taking the time to share about your new product as the CEO of Void Wave Beverages. Thank you very much for sharing, and you're a very inspiring life and your perspective on politics and all sorts of things going on in New York today. That hopefully through your movement, the Pink Panthers, you'll be able to help inspire us to go back to our roots as a community and away from this sort of centralization, which is alienating and dehumanizing our potential of New Yorkers come together and to work together as they had been before. So thank you very much, Faith, for coming on the Etiquette Show, and thanks for Santosh joining us as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.
Thank you.
Christine Sloan Stoddard for the Etiquette Show here. My guest is naturopathic doctor Noreen Kelly. Welcome, Noreen.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Thank you so much for being here. In honor of Pride Month, we have asked Noreen to discuss her work with people of diverse sexual orientations and gender experiences. So, Noreen, broadly speaking, what does a naturopathic doctor do?
A naturopathic doctor has the same background and training as a regular medical or allopathic doctor, only our approach is to use drugs last, in the last possible moment. So we utilize herbs, homeopathy, nutrition, and supplementation, and lifestyle as our modalities in order to help people with their symptoms and their chronic illnesses mostly.
Great. So you're also a clinical herbalist and homeopath. So
Yes.
How are these roles different yet related?
Those roles I had before I attained my doctorate. They are modalities that naturopaths use, but I have more training than a normal naturopath would have in those particular modalities. So I add those to the chain of my my expertise.
It's a nice long chain.
Yeah.
So why might members of the I'm going to start that one all over. Why might members of the LGBTQ community seek your expertise?
Well, I am a queer person myself, and I have had training and with LGBTQ people, how to treat them, trans people in particular. I see a lot of LGBTQ people. I obviously, being a queer person myself, I empathize with the treatment that sometimes they can get from a so-called normal doctor. So that's basically it. I think mostly it's empathy and similar experiences.
Yeah, definitely important. So you've reserved a percentage of your practice for sliding scale appointments, and LGBTQ patients are among those who receive priority when these appointments become available. Why did you make this choice?
I made this choice because I want to see more of those patients. Those patients are very important. It's very important to me to have a majority of my patients be LGBTQ identified. And also sometimes, especially with trans youth and other LGBTQ people, they can't always, not everyone can afford insurance. Not everyone can afford to pay $200 for an hour or something. I want to make sure, because this population is very important to me, that I can provide a service that's not going to, be exasperatingly expensive for them.
Great. So people just self-identify, or do you confirm with any medical history, any kinds of paperwork from the past?
No, people self-identify and I go with it. It's a spectrum of different people. I would never, there's no way to really prove it, but
Right.
I think so.
That makes sense. So while attaining your doctorate, you created an outreach program for LGBTQ students. What inspired this move?
Well, the place where I went to school in Connecticut is sort of an insular community. It has the highest disparity of wealth in the entire state. It's, it has a lot of students from different countries and different backgrounds where there's a lot of homophobia. So I wanted to create a safe space for other LGBTQ people to come and, be around, have a community. So mostly consisted of us having meetings and having talks and, question answer things, like events where people could ask questions if someone was trans or somebody was a person of color who was LGBTQ, where people could have a dialogue, basically. And I think that people really appreciated it. I hope that they did. It was good. It was a nice experience for me.
So was the program just for other students in your specific?
No, it was the entire university. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was young people, like people who were just sort of questioning, coming out and everything. And just so some people just would come to the meetings and just sit there and not say anything, but just want to be a part of it. Everybody had their own level of comfortability with, being part of that kind of.
Come and see us at the Ottawa International Food and Book Expo on April 27 and 28 in the Horticulture Building in Lansdowne Park. It's still not too late to apply to be an exhibitor or event partner. Email us